Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from worldwide. I'm Sterling. Great to have you back on the channel. This show is being recorded for Sunday, March 27th, 2022. And as always, these shows are for entertainment purposes only. So all the information I share with you comes real time through my guides and angels, extended spiritual counsel, ETs, famous people from history, and they're for entertainment purposes only. Always, if you can remember to like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, all those things really help the channel, the back end algorithms. And also just want to highlight the fact we're still running a contest. So every time we reach the next level of 1,000 subscribers, in this case, 22,000 subscribers, I give away a free half-hour session with myself. And the way you enter the contest is just to comment on these shows, starting off with the word love. That's how we know you want to be entered into the contest. And then we simply select the winner from the show where we cross 22,000 subscribers. And I'm relatively sure it's going to be this show. I think we're only 15 subscribers away at this point. So thanks for that. Also want to give a big thank you to all the individuals that submit questions for these shows. We put a request each week on our community board, and then we garner all the questions for these shows from that community board posting, and had just lots of wonderful, thoughtful, very creative and insightful questions. So it's always appreciated. It really adds to the value. So the community, if you will, the overall community that participates in these shows really adds to the value and quality of all these shows. So we couldn't do it without you. Also, real quick, just want to give a shout out to a number of people in this community that have Aries birthdays this month and next month, including myself and my wife, and Whimsy, I think Mel as well. So lots of individuals, lots of Aries birthdays out there. So just want to give everybody a big shout out. So happy birthday. So for today, this show, I think we had 55 questions garnered from the community board as a top countdown. So let's get started. Question 55. Does Nikola Tesla have any messages for us? Yes, a few things. He's working diligently with many scientists on the other side and archangels to ensure the safety of humanity. And he also wants to reemphasize the importance of 369 in the universe when it comes to technology, understanding the universe, and even understanding timings on situations here. Interesting. He also wants to assure us that within decades, so I think less than 100 years here, humankind will have advancements in place for time travel. So that's coming up, wants to mention that. And he also wants to highlight the fact that humankind, the safety of humankind will be ensured through the work he's doing and the work of ETs. And then within a few decades here, that we'll actually have, we'll feel a greater sense of safety in the world against any kind of major nuclear mass destruction. So lots of good things happening with Nikola Tesla on the other side and working with many important people on the other side to bring that about. So a great individual. 54 in our countdown. Currently, people have to be 65 to be eligible to apply for Medicare. Will the age be lowered in the future? Yes. What they're telling me is that as a result of the COVID pandemic, that they're going to start lowering the age. It seems like it's coming down to 62 at first, within a year or two, might be faster, and then 60. And a lot of the funding for this will come from minimum taxes to corporations that will be 15%. That's 15% minimum tax. So that extra revenue is going to support things like lowering the age of Medicare. That's a good thing. 53. Love the Sunday videos with Sterling. Will the wife of Clarence Thomas, Ginny Thomas, who funded buses coming to the Capitol on January 6th, face charges? Why has Justice Thomas not stepped down? And will information come to light causing him to retire? Well, again, for entertainment purposes only, I do see charges coming down on the wife. And I do see Thomas stepping down from the Supreme Court. And it looks like it's due to in part some health problems and also some legal problems. So it looks like they're intertwined, these legal problems related to January 6th. And it looks like that's coming up fairly shortly. And shortly means weeks to months, but not very long before charges and the stepping down occur and take place. 52. Hello, Sterling. Do you and your guides see Putin attacking other European countries? Well, yes, I do see some spillover into Poland, but I do see very aggressive actions coming here by the NATO alliance. So there's something happening here, but regarding some European countries, but it's very fast response by NATO, and that's going to push it all back. So I do see that happening. Now, quickly. 51. How will the energy on Mars affect the astronauts that go to live for long periods on Mars? If we are adapted to the Schumann resonance of Earth, will Mars vibration be tolerated by humans? Well, yes, the Schumann resonance is actually a 7.83 hertz signal. That's actually the frequency, the generic frequency of Earth, 7.83 cycles per second. And this will be artificially created and spaced on Mars, so the humans will be able to adapt to it. Yes. 50. Will Gen Z and millennials make an overwhelming voting mark at the US November 2022 elections? Absolutely, as well as many, many minority groups. So this is going to be a big push that will derail a lot of the GOP. So yes, it'll have a very, very big effect for the Democrats in 2022. 49. At the age of 2, I possibly died or nearly died from a severe gastro bug. Now, many years later, I'm reflecting back about thoughts and events that have happened in my life. Times when I knew things that I shouldn't have known, such as knowing about when people are sick, like when my dad had cancer 6 months before he was diagnosed, or my girlfriend had ovarian cancer before she was diagnosed. I have always felt connected to God, but I was brought up as a strict Catholic. Does my knowing have a bigger purpose? And if so, how do I develop it so that I don't second guess myself? Yes, you have a heightened gift in this area given to you at birth, spiritual insight into health. You also have some tremendous healing ability. So I would definitely take this seriously and look for ways to develop a gift. It's going to take some research on your part to figure out who you want to work with to mentor you, but you do have the gift. Take it seriously and don't be conflicted, let's say, with growing up Catholic per se. We're all spiritual beings, and that's the higher level of connection to the one force, and honor that gift that you have. Congratulations, you have a gift, and you'll help that gift to help many other people. 48 on the countdown. Was the Philadelphia Project in 1943 a real thing? If so, what happened? There's a story that says Nikola Tesla was involved at first, but pulled out of the project. So yes, this is all part of cloaking technology. So you can make large objects like a destroyer invisible. What they're telling me is here there was some confusion. So the cloaking technology was real with the Philadelphia experiment. What I'm feeling here, and they're telling me was not real, was that the destroyer was moved to like Norfolk, Virginia. So cloaking technology was real. The experiment did take place. Government tried to dispute it. And some people did perish in the experiment, but something happened with the cloaking technology that caused some people to perish, but it was swept under the rug by the government. So this cloaking technology is also being used in space right now and used by extraterrestrials to hide vehicles. Well, it's all real. And even that technology being used today by some of our government officials in space. So more to come on that, but this cloaking technology will be made available and more public. But the Philadelphia experiment was real. 47. My question is, do aliens have a more accurate calendar for Earth than humans? Or does the human calendar using BC and AC designations take precedence. Aliens have a much more accurate calendar, but it's continuous. They don't use an AC and BC designation, and their calendar spans millions of years. So it's much more accurate calendar, much more expansive. Okay, 46 on our countdown. Lachlan Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch's son, is currently the CEO of Fox and is reportedly even more right-wing than his father. Lachlan Murdoch's brother, James Murdoch, a progressive who supported Biden's campaign, resigned from Fox in 2020. I've heard it suggested that Fox may transform in a positive way as a result of Rupert Murdoch's son's influence. To see this happening, given Lachlan's leadership and agreement with his father's philosophy. Yeah. So here's what they're telling me. In a short period of time here, I'm giving you 12 to 24 months here, there will be a shift at that network. But the reason for the shift is more economic and financial. So a lot of advertisers pulling out due to alignment with offshore groups, if you want to be careful here for entertainment purposes only. But it's that the reason all the advertisers leave creates a big sinkhole of lost financing and money for that network. And that's what starts to push the change. So there will be a change, but it's not necessarily just due to strict, I'll call it idealism into a better area. It's more financial in nature. 45. I watched in horror as news broke that the nuclear power plant in 3 Mile Island was on the verge of melting down. Should we credit ETs with preventing this situation from becoming far worse than it was? Yes, absolutely. And this is actually an example of dozens of areas and interactions ETs have had on Earth to protect Earth from total devastation. 44. How much Russian laundered money is invested in US real estate? Billions and billions of dollars. So this is something on the order of maybe it's approximately $4 billion. But if you look at the overall amount of US real estate, commercial and residential, you're looking at trillions of dollars. So this represents really a small fraction, but looks like billions of dollars in Russian laundered money in real estate. 43, will the invasion of Ukraine and the resulting lack of ability of NATO and the UN to truly help Ukraine on the ground change the way European countries organize to prevent this type of devastation in the future? Yes. This is a great example of how the Earth and the universe moves things along. So remember, there's always, say, good and evil, if you will, in the world, or good and bad. And this particular invasion created by Russia is going to move a lot of countries, a lot of European countries, and the UN and NATO towards a much stronger alignment. So it'll actually have the opposite effect of what Putin wanted. So yes, this event will, in fact, in the end, have some very good outcomes for the world. Okay, 42 on the countdown. My question is, how do you differentiate what is a dream or an encounter? One experience I had was in the middle of a deep sleep. I was aware that I was levitating above my bed. I was terrified. There were beings in the doorway, and I could feel them say, "Stop. She can't handle it." And I slowly floated back down. Was this an encounter? And if so, who were they and what was the purpose? Or was it a dream? So for me, this is coming across, they're saying, as a dream. If this was a real encounter, there'd be some physical evidence of the encounter. So you might say woken up across the room or a completely different orientation bed. So for me, what they're telling me is encounter will have some physical evidence, but this comes across to me as a dream. 41. Will Judge Jackson be confirmed to the Supreme Court? Yes, I mean, what they're telling me is I believe with a resounding yes, she'll be confirmed to the Supreme Court. And I believe that vote is coming up this week. So we should know very soon. 40, love. As she's saying now, 40, love to all beings and all galaxies across all space and time. This is what I feel and send out every night when I stand in my backyard looking at the sky each evening. Do the galactic beings feel my genuine love? Absolutely, and they return it tenfold. In fact, I'm actually communicating with some of the galactic beings that are listening to you, and they're saying, absolutely, return it to you tenfold. 39. Is Hunter Biden's laptop story true? If so, what will be the conclusion of this investigation? I'm being told this will have no effect, let's say, on the Biden presidency. And this is all about GOP, try to create some major story around peddling influence, and it won't have any real effect on the Biden presidency. And so this is all a bit of made up story and trying to create a smokescreen. And it looks like this laptop somehow was delivered, or they received this laptop through some Delaware laptop repair agency or something. So no, it's not going to have any effect on GOP, and the outcome will be kind of null and void. 38. I'd like more information on personality disorders. I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and my nephew diagnosed with narcissism. The emotions and expressions can be exhausting. My readings say these diagnoses are due to being parented in a traumatic manner. I was not abused by my parents, and I cannot imagine my nephew being physically mistreated either. Is there a cure? I think you said once that it was a physical disease and not a mental disease or disorder. Well, first, let me make it very clear. I'm not a medical doctor, but what my guides are saying is that there's more than a dozen, or could be more than that, personality disorders, that they're not spiritual in nature. So it's not karmic, something you're bringing through, or spiritual, but it does have a physical resonance with this lifetime. And it's something that you can physically work through with the help of a professional, a trained professional or a doctor, but has something to do with the physical environment or things that were incurred in this lifetime. That's what my team's telling me. So again, not a doctor, but dozens of personality disorders, and not related to karmic or spiritual. So hopefully that helps. That with the effect of they're telling me here, if you're working with a trained professional, a doctor, there's some techniques used to kind of retrain the response to triggers. So something having to do with retraining neural responses to triggers. So hopefully that helps. 37. A part of Russia's political elite sees Federal Security Service Director Alexander Bortnikov as Putin's successor. It is Bortnikov who has recently fallen out of favor with the Russian dictator Putin. Will he help with getting rid of Putin, and will he be the next leader? They're telling me Bortnikov will play a key role in helping to remove Putin, but I've seen in many other sessions I've done with my guides, the number of factors will help nullify Putin and remove him, including efforts by the generals and insider team. But it does not look like Bortnikov will be the next leader. Now, they're cautioning my team is that there may be an interim leader for a few months before they name the permanent leader of Russia and replacement for Putin. But they're also telling me this will be a young individual. I think Putin is in his 60s. This will be somebody in maybe 40s, early 40s, and somebody that will actually be pushed into power. And what they're saying by that is that this will be somebody that may reluctantly not want to take the job, the next role over from Putin, but industry, business, and the military and government in Russia will push him into that role. So hopefully that helps. It does not look like long-term, was it Bortnikov will be the replacement. 36. You made a suggestion that we could ask our guides to give us an answer to your questions and see if we get the same answers. This is something I've been doing. It is not as in-depth as your answers, but I'm still getting 90% of them right. I have noticed that I'm completely exhausted after doing this. Is this how you feel after a reading? Well, yes, if you genuinely do this work, you absolutely will get exhausted because you're really consuming energy, both physical and mental energy when you do this work. So you absolutely will get exhausted. I'll tell you that anybody tells you that they don't get exhausted from doing the work is maybe not tapping into the full extent of the energy. So it is exhausting. So congratulations. That's a very normal factor. I confirm that. So, but I'm also being reminded here by my team, like any athlete, the more you practice, the stronger you get, and you build up your endurance. So that's all true. So hopefully that's helpful. 35. Are ETs as divided on issues as our country or the world? How do they stay unified? Do they have something they could teach us all about this? Yes, they have an elevated understanding of the universe and unity and bringing humankind and the universe and all beings together. And they're not bent on power and killing each other. So those are all very elevated understandings. So those are certainly things that extraterrestrials and ETs can teach us. And that's one of the reasons that they don't make themselves very well known to a lot of people, because there's certainly humankind needs an elevation of their understanding of being connected to the one force and unity, and not trying to essentially kill each other for power. So yeah. Okay, 34 on a countdown. While walking by a fishing lake, I saw a goose in distress with fishing lines tangled around its feet. I went through much effort and many attempts to get someone to free it. Unbelievably, several days later, while pushing a shopping cart at Walmart, I suddenly found my feet tangled in some fishing line that had been discarded on the floor. An employee who observed this happened helped cut the fishing line free from my feet. I immediately thought of the goose and smiled. I felt that this was more than coincidence. What message was the universe trying to send to me, or what was the meaning of this? This was absolutely a direct message from the goose. Thank you. So this is a direct message from the goose and the universe. And congratulations, you actually acknowledged and caught the message. So you're really seeing some wonderful unity in the way the universe works among people, animals, the universe, angels and guides. So that's a wonderful experience. Thanks for sharing. And we're all connected. 33. Are the gods Horus, Zeus, Odin, etc. simply made up myths, or do they really exist? If so, what are they? Well, my team's telling me that, in fact, they were all extraterrestrials that could shapeshift and show themselves any way they wanted. In this way, they showed themselves to have superhuman powers, and many during those time periods then gave them a classification as gods, but they were shapeshifting extraterrestrials here to help. 32. Does Anonymous have information on Putin about helping Trump steal the presidential race in 2017? Will it come out? Absolutely. It's going to come out very soon, sometime between now and, let's say, summer. So very soon, we're going to see a lot of information come out from Anonymous. And this is a group of very well-qualified individuals. Some are quite young, some are more middle-aged and older, but they've got a great collection of talent. And a lot of this information is going to come out very soon. 31. Do you see an answer to the housing crisis in Canada coming soon? Well, I don't see it coming soon. I look like the elevated levels of housing prices were exacerbated by the pandemic and a number of others. So it's created a real housing bubble in Canada, but it looks like the housing bubble is not going to pop necessarily for a couple of years. Once it does break, there's going to be a reset of values and they'll come back more to normal. I wish it was faster, but my guides are telling me it's still going to be, 2 to 3 years out here. So unfortunately, but that's what I see happening, for to correct. 30. Will Americans lose money from cyber attacks in our banking systems? Well, yes, not to concern you, there's going to be some level of loss. It's not going to be substantial, but the losses will be taken care of directly by the banks and by the federal government. So there'll be some smaller percentage of losses in the banking system due to cyber attacks, but it will be covered. 29. Hi, Sterling. I just watched the 1970s movie, The Ghost of Flight 401, the Eastern Airlines plane that went down in the Florida Everglades. The aircraft was recovered and parts were used on other aircraft. It's said the deceased pilot haunts aircraft that are using the cannibalized parts. Is this true? No, no truth to that whatsoever. There are no hauntings, and any stories that were created around, hauntings or parts being used, are all folklore. And remember, we create our own reality, so a lot of this is individuals creating their own reality around us. So no truth to haunted parts. 28. What impact will the revelations concerning extraterrestrials have on the major world religions? Well, in some respects, they're going to be reset and reformed a little bit, understanding that many of the, let's say, some of the so-called gods in the stories were extraterrestrials, but they're going to reset a number of the events. And it's going to require kind of a re-leveling of some of the world's religions and bring them back to something that I'm going to call it more realistic and substantive in explaining many of the events that occurred in history, like the Greek gods. 27. Given the huge multi-billion-dollar profits oil companies have made this year, will we ever see a time when they are limited as the price increases at the pump based on the price per barrel of crude? Will we see windfall taxes on those profiting from gouging the public? Well, no, I don't see any direct, let's say, penalties to the oil companies for gouging. They're kind of doing this. They're for-profit companies. What I do see is the federal government and governments across the world interacting and doing things like minimizing taxes on fuel at the pump. So it kind of lowers the cost. And I see things in the US here with doing things like rebates and gas cards and things to try to level out the prices at the pump. But I don't see any direct, say, penalties from the federal government per se, just kind of some workarounds. And I also see my team's telling me that one of the big things is there's going to be incentivizing by governments to oil companies to move into green energy and to help with solar and electrified vehicles and battery technology. So that's kind of how it's all going to get moved to more of a sense of a reasonableness, but it won't necessarily be penalties, let's say, for taking profits. 26. What happens to a soul if he or she dies angry at God? Nothing at all, really. As you kind of transition to a space of total love, your spirit, your entire higher self, and your unique spiritual energy moves to the other side. You drop all of the fear, ego, things that you might have had. As you move into a space of love at the one force, you move through a life review. And so anything that you might have, let's say, in feelings you had when you passed, or you're angry at God, really has no clear effect other than some of the life reviews you go through. But, the one force understands all of us, and it's a supreme place of love. 25. Since I was a little girl, I always had this inner knowing. I've always felt like I didn't belong on planet Earth and belong somewhere else. I've always felt homesick for home far away. Can your guides perhaps comment on this for me? Yes, I mean, you're having resonance to a former life. So many individuals on the planet right now came from star systems. Absolutely many did. In fact, the majority came from star systems. You're having a resonance to a prior life. And that's a wonderful memory. So that's a lot of what you're feeling. And I think many people on the planet can share that kind of feeling, that experience. 24. Hi, Sterling. Once you mentioned that Europe will see $300 per barrel oil by the end of the year, will we have the same high price here in North America? No, not necessarily here in North America. We'll see some, big fluctuations in oil prices. That's true. But a lot of the larger, more expensive prices per barrel oil in Europe will be because of other factors in Europe. And we're seeing some of that with the fluctuations of things going around, Russian oil, and the fact whether, Germany has now chose, I think, not to embargo Russian oil, but looks like that's going to be fluctuating back and forth. Many factors as to where oil is going to come from that gets transferred into Europe, including some other things happening around, Middle Eastern countries are saying here. So many other factors will affect the price per barrel in Europe that won't be the same factors here in the US. 23. Some of my earliest childhood memories are practicing making myself fill the room I was in. I would go all the way to the ceiling and then make myself tiny, like 3 inches tall. What was this about? Was it a kind of exercise for out of body travel? Well, what they're telling me in some cases, what you're doing was experiencing your full spiritual self. So whatever this exercise was you were doing, you can expand your full spiritual energy. And that's why sometimes people come to a room and feel someone. So this is part of an exercise of expanding your full spiritual self and then contracting it as well. So all of us can do that. We can expand our full spiritual self and contract. And that's a lot what you were doing as a child. 22. Some days my oracle or tarot cards are perfect for what's going on in my life. Other days, no matter how many decks I use, there is no relevance. They do not resonate at all. Why is this? Well, you need clear communication, like through the creative channel in your mind, through anything you do, and can spiritual mediumship work, and that goes all the way out to using tools like tarot cards or for pendulums or any other device. And so my recommendation, if you have that happen, you have to center yourself, ground yourself, limit all fear and anxiety, reopen that creative channel. And that's really what's going on there. It's also related. Sometimes individuals talk about creative block or writer's block, and that all speaks to the same kind of a stopping of the energy, if you will. So that's all. Just back off, clear yourself, balance your energy, and should all come back again. 21. How do we know we have found the right person to allow into our lives to love after being abused in past love relationships? So look, very simply, talk to your guides and angels. Some people say pray. Those are all good. Remember, we're all in a school down here, but open yourself up, get yourself into a point ready to receive. So it'll take some work. But it doesn't mean you won't be affected by certain new relationships. We have many soul mates as we go through life. Every soul mate teaches us a lesson, but make sure you align and communicate with your guides and angels. So those are some of the basic fundamental principles, and be ready to love and know that we're all down here in the school, and that each soul experience with others gives you an important lesson. It's all schooled here on earth. Okay, 20 in our countdown. I have a very vivid memory that has been with me since I was a very young girl. The room was very dark and I was sitting at a large table and I was just shown a movie. I heard a voice say to me, "That's your mom, dad, brother, and sister. Are you ready to go?" I was so young when I had this memory. I remember wanting to tell my mother about it, but I couldn't speak well enough to tell her. It's still so vivid to me 46 years later. I believe I was reviewing my life with my guides prior to being born. Is this correct? If so, why was I allowed to carry this memory with me? So absolutely, this is your last memory just before coming down, where you select your parents and you establish your life path blueprint. And so that's a very clear, validate that's the memory. My team validates it. You're allowed to remember it because it means you have a little more sensitivity in the psychic mediumship area. And this is probably part of your gift down here on Earth. So you have heightened sensitivity in that area, which is why you remember that more clearly, let's say, than other people. But that's exactly what it was all about. You were just getting ready to make all the final selections and establish your blueprint before you came down. Okay, 19, our countdown. Do we benefit from dreams even though we don't consciously remember them? Yes, and you don't always have to remember your dreams for them to be impactful. So all dreams are meant to be either healing or insightful or training or help you move through lessons in life. So they're all have a purpose. You don't have to remember them all. And as you get more advanced, let's say, in your spirituality and spiritual work, I find that individuals tend to remember their dreams much more clearly and on a much more regular basis. 18. Sterling, you have spoken about spirit beings and aliens working together for the good of humanity. Were aliens in the hierarchy? Oh, sorry. Where are aliens in the hierarchy of angels, the spirit world, and levels of heaven? And can they use their supernatural abilities to intervene to assist, protect countries, if not the world, from devastation? Yes, it's my experience with my team that extraterrestrials kind of sit in between the range between angels and human. And they certainly assist in all elements of many areas of galaxies and universes. And in fact, they do help here on Earth with humankind on a regular basis. So that's all very true. ETs are a much more elevated energy than humans, but not as elevated as angels. But due to the fact they're much more highly elevated, they understand how to get along and how to have a sense of higher purpose, and they understand how to be aligned with the one force. 17. My dream was to retire in Puerto Rico, but the drug war has done so much to damage the beautiful island. Will Puerto Rico ever recover? I'm being told here it's going to have kind of a substantial recovery within 8 years, but it's going to take that long because of all the devastation from, say, recent hurricane or hurricanes and devastation due to the pandemic. So yes, it looks like within 8 years, it's going to have a very substantial recovery. 16. When I was 12 or 13, I went with a family on a rock hunt on a small mountain. I lost track of time and was separated from others. At some point, I realized I was on the downside of the hill looking down, and others were calling my name. They said I was missing for hours. What happened? I mean, it looks to me like they're telling me you walk through a portal. So there are many portals here on Earth, but you walk through it, and it looks like, in a funny way, individuals in the portal, looks like some ETs setting you back. So you walk through a portal. Very strange. 15. I recall you saying something about an event or a disaster in New York City this year. Will you please elaborate on that again? Well, my guides are highlighting the fact that it looks like there's some sort of an explosion around a transportation hub in New York City, but they're not elaborating any more information beyond that for the time being. It looks like it's around a transportation hub. Luckily, I don't see a major loss of life, but it looks like the explosion is meant to impact the transportation hub. 14. Will the U.S. take in large numbers of Ukrainian refugees? Well, yes, they already have. And I know on the news last night, I think the first 100,000 are going to be taken in. But my guides are saying maybe nearly 1 million refugees will eventually be taken in from Ukraine. So many more hundreds of thousands of Ukraine refugees being taken in. And for some reason, it looks to me that could be close to 1 million by the time it's all over. What impact, is 13, question 13, what impact will COVID and its variants have on the war between Russia and Ukraine? Will NATO be able to address those additional needs of the citizens of Ukraine and their refugees and countries supporting them? Will it be done swiftly enough? Yes, I'm being told the COVID variants won't be a significant factor, let's say, on the war and what's happening there in Ukraine. The COVID variants are going to be a factor worldwide, but it looks like NATO and UN organizations are going to step in very well and assist with anything having to do with, vaccinations and helping around curtailing the COVID pandemic. 12. Will there be floating cars similar to the ones from science fiction? Yes. These floating cars will eventually all use anti-gravity propulsion systems, which will take some very unique materials that will be brought about that ETs already utilize. And these materials will be placed on Earth, and they'll be used for anti-gravity propulsion systems for many types of vehicles, including cars. Yes. And in fact, this material and anti-gravity propulsion systems were things that Bob Lazar talked about in his experience around Area 51. 11. My husband constantly tells me that when he was a little kid, he remembers being visited by aliens that looked exactly like the aliens in the movie Communion with Christopher Walken. At first, they shapeshifted to look like a neighborhood friend, but then he realized it wasn't possible, and then they turned into aliens. Did something really happen to him? Was he visited by shape-shifting aliens? He remembers it so vividly. Yes, your friend or your husband's friend here was visited by shape-shifting aliens. This was an experience. Yes, he was. And by the way, it's a common experience for many people. 10. Will the Russian people ever find out what Putin is really doing in Ukraine? And if so, how will they react? Well, yes, I see a majority of the Russian people within weeks here being fully aware of what's happening in Ukraine. It looks like right now it's kind of a 50-50 split for me around the Russian population, where the older population still believes the propaganda, and the younger population is very aware through social media sources that something's going on. And when you have anywhere from 10 to 16,000 Russian military not coming back. So it looks like a bit of a 50-50 split, and then a majority within weeks here really becoming aware. 9 in our countdown. I understand we have soul contracts with members of our biological family. Does that mean we have to be with them on the other side? No, not at all. Remember, there are hundreds of individuals in our extended spiritual family, including those you choose to come down with in this lifetime, and you don't have to be around them. And you can make whatever selection you want on that side of who you spend time around. So I think that was the question. Do you have to be around the other side? Nope. When you go through a life review, obviously, they're going to be part of the discussion, but you don't have to be around them on the other side if you don't choose to. Number 8 in our countdown. Are all ETs good, or are there any that we need to worry about? Well, the vast majority of ETs are friendly and benevolent. There are a few species, like the reptilians, that are a little angry, but the vast majority of other ET species tend to help keep them in check. So there's a few ET populations that have attitude. Reptilians are one of them, but by and large, they're okay. 7, the animals at the Ukrainian zoo are dying from starvation, dehydration. Will they be rescued? I'm being told within weeks here, there's going to be some sort of a turnaround here where we're going to see either NATO organizations or NATO-sponsored organizations helping out to get zoo animals out of the country. So maybe there's some sort of a handoff at the Ukrainian border to NATO organizations. Something coming here very soon. 6, when I was a child that went to bed, I often felt distant from my body. I was awake and could not see my body as separate, but everything around me seemed much farther away from me than it actually was. I could still reach out and touch things, but it didn't help bring them back to a normal distance. It seemed like I was leaving my body, but I was wide awake. What was happening to me? It stopped happening as I got into my teens. Well, for me, they're telling me you're doing some form of astral traveling. And a lot of individuals can astral travel. You can learn how to do that and do it reliably, but that's what my team is telling me. You have some form of astral traveling. It looks like you also have an acute ability for psychic mediumship. So congratulations. I would say make sure you work on that, try to expand that ability. Number 5 in our countdown. I worry about the problems oil production causes around the world. I heard a lot of good things about thorium reactors and zero emission natural gas conversion. Is there a future for them as a stopgap technology until fusion power is perfected? Well, thorium reactors, they're just telling me, is a part of fission process. And the zero emission technology is all about recapturing carbon emissions. So it looks like some of them will be stopgap measures. It looks like within 10 years here, within a decade, there'll be a number of fission and fusion technologies. So fission reactors and fusion reactors that'll be more mainstream. So I guess I wouldn't say they're stopgap measures. They're all going to be part of the equation for energy we're going to use, but it's still about a decade away. So hopefully, and then a lot of other green technologies coming in here too. So hopefully that helps with the answer to this question. 4, good morning, Sterling. 5 years ago, my daughter unfortunately passed away. After the funeral home received her, I spent time alone with my daughter, washing her and saying her last goodbyes. During that time, I saw a vision of someone standing in the room with me to my left. The person was wearing all white, dressed similarly to a nun, along with a headdress cloth, but I could not see a face. I am not Catholic, nor grew up in this religion. Who was this? Why did this person or presence make itself known to me? why did she not show her face? So for me, my team is collectively saying, this is one of your daughter's birth angels, ready to receive her and ready to escort her. So this was one of her birth angels with a very strong presence ready to escort your daughter. And I do see this on a very regular occasion when this happens around the passing. So congratulations, you witnessed a very important individual in your daughter's life, very important angelic figure, if you will, in your daughter's life. And somebody who's actually important to you, because that's why this angel showed herself. Okay, number 3 on our countdown. Can I connect with Arcturians on my own without taking expensive classes that claim to endow a person with Arcturian healing abilities? Do the Arcturians choose the people who teach these classes? Well, first, yes, you can develop these abilities on your own. It does take training. Doesn't take expensive classes. Let me first say that in regards to the question here, the internal question about do Arcturians choose people training in classes? All ETs select who they want to help and who they believe can help them. So in order for them to kind of get aligned with people and help, they want to ensure that people they're communicating with have a benevolent desire to help others, and they'll really take the information that gets passed along them in a helpful way. I think you have to be careful with any major training course you take, like in this area, because you can develop these techniques and ways to communicate on your own, but you do have to be selected by ETs because they genuinely believe you can help them. So hopefully that helps in the answers to this question. Number 2, do you see anything coming up this week? I do see continued significant NATO efforts to align themselves, move more military and assistance into Ukraine. I do see the MiGs still making their way into Ukraine through some very special areas. I do see some aggressive movement by Putin into some more military action this week, but I see a very strong response by NATO. Looks like something that might be coming very close to the border of Poland or maybe cross over. A strong response here by NATO. I do see a cyber attack moving forward in the world, in the US this week, but I do see that threat being stopped very quickly. And last but not least, reminding here, I do see some significant movement in the Supreme Court Justice nominee and confirmation here this week, Judge Jackson. So a lot coming up this week, but by and large, I see it's good outcome in a lot of areas, but significant movements around cyber attacks, Putin movement, NATO response. So a lot going on this week. And, last but just reminding me here, also something about Bill Barr coming back into the news and the media and help around back-end information on the election and the insurrection. So Bill Barr is coming back somehow into the news and media this week too. Okay, interesting. And number 1 in our countdown, do you have anything your guys want to share? Always take time to acknowledge your guides and angels and the archangels. They're working overtime to help you and everybody on the planet, along with ETs, to safeguard humanity, safeguard the planet. So always take time to thank them, acknowledge them, and most importantly, stay in alignment with them. So on that note, we conclude today's show. If anybody needs to reach me, very easy to do. Just look for sterlingpsychicmedium.com. Look for the book a session tab. Very easy to do from there. Again, I want to wish everybody a lot of goodwill and send out a lot of love to you and your families. I want the best for everybody, for humankind, for all lots of love and light, everybody in Ukraine, lots of love and light to everybody in Russia, that the population and all the world's government sees the light and makes the right step towards world peace. And I do believe we're going to achieve that. So blessings to everybody. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.